Waagh! Hey everybody, welcome to Always Bored, Never Boring. That really weird introduction was to mark the occasion of the arrival of my Ironskull's Boyz expansion for Warhammer Underworlds Shadespire. This is the warband that I have been most excited about receiving, closely followed by the Skellies, the Sepulchral Guard. But yeah, Orruks are my boys. I like me some greenskins, and these are some good ones. So, yeah, expansions are £17.50 retail, which is a really good price considering you're getting Games Workshop plastic miniatures up to, I mean, there's 7 in the Sepulchral Guard box, but 4 in this case, but 4 big chunky orcs. And you're also getting 60 upgrade cards, 60 ploys, upgrades, objectives, including a bunch of universal ones that you can use in any deck, and 29 they're specifically for the Ironskull's Boyz. And this isn't an unboxing. I'm going to quickly look at the miniatures, discuss how they were to assemble, and then just pick out a couple of cards that I thought were quite interesting, and yeah, go from there really. Here's the handy dandy instruction book that came with it. Yeah, 4 orcs, and went together really easily. The good thing about, or I'm going to keep calling them orcs, but Orruks, because they're quite big and chunky, they're really easy to go together. I actually ended up using a bit of glue on mine. I used some plastic glue because I did the whole test with the base set and assembled them without glue, and just to check that you could do it and there was no real problems. But as I just tend to prefer to have things glued together just in case any bits do work loose. So I've been gluing this time, and yeah, but they, even without you know, they'd go together without glue because they're very simple push fit models, big chunky pieces that aren't likely to bend or snap as you wiggle them together, and yeah, just really nice miniatures with really good simple instructions and just a few pieces. I mean, like this guy, his front section, back section, and then a head, and then his base. And there's 4 of them, like I say. Here's the boss man. Really cool miniature. Big axes, obviously. Went together really easily. The biggest issue with him being there's a seam down his shoulder here where he clips on here, and there's a little lug here on the cape. The cape actually is away from the body. It's very difficult to see that, I think, on the camera, but yeah, so it's slightly away from the body, so you've got to line it up perfectly with a little hole there and a lug there, and push on. But you know, went together nicely, and really cool model. I've got his character card somewhere. Where's his character card? Here's his character card, already in its sleeve, so getting some nice glare. Yeah, Gurzag Ironskull. Super beefy, 5 wounds. And quite punchy too, with his great big axes. Gets inspired when he takes damage, which is the same for all of the Orruks. And once he's inspired, he can reroll 1 dice when he's making attack actions, so he just gets even killier. And this is the thing with the Orruk team, they're killy dudes. They're killy guys. But there we go, there's your boss. Here's probably my favourite miniature. This is the one that I just showed you in the assembly guide with the big axe. So it was just front and back, clup, stick the head on, and look at the detailing on that. That's fantastic. I really like Orruks greenskins because the big iron plates, and then the facial expressions and the comedy axes and things. I just think they're hilarious. I've always liked greenskins. I used to have a huge greenskin army back in the day when I was a wee nipper playing Warhammer Fantasy Battle. And let's see if we can find a character card for this guy. there he is. He's called Bone Cutter in typical orcish subtlety with the name. He just gets punchier when he gets inspired. It's quite interesting, the Orruks, because although they're all about fighting, the damage output isn't particularly high for the majority of them. But they have lots of cards that help to rectify that. So, sorry, I'm a little bit distracted by what was happening off camera there as I dropped some cards. Here's a guy with an eye patch, or he's actually got a plate. It's actually like an eye plate going all over his face. Wow! I'm going to stop doing that because I sound like an idiot. Yeah, big clubby clubs. Here's the character card. Basher. Now see, this is what I mean. Only putting out 1 damage. But this is sort of like your rank and file guy, and he's still got 4 wounds, so they're difficult to take out of a fight. And this is useful because obviously once they take damage, they become inspired, and that's when they get even punchier. But this guy always has the ability that his attacks cause knockback 1, but on a critical. So that's handy because you know he's when he hits you with those clubs, you're going to go flying, and yeah, when he's inspired, he gets punchier. But all of these guys are gonna survive a fight. This model again, very easy to put together. No obvious, you know. The join is actually down there where the plate is. See where that plate sits over the top of the other one? So when that got pushed on, so it you know goes together in such a way that it kind of hides the fact that it's a join there because it just looks like the plate overlapping. Very clever, very cool, and one of the benefits of the Orky design. This is the last guy. Potentially my favourite. I don't know. I swing between Bone Cutter with his big axe and this guy as being my favourite model from the set, just because I really like his old sort of Black Orc style face mask with the pig-like nose guard. It's really cool. Again, this guy went together. It's sort of like a sandwich, and you know, very very nicely done. You can see there's a line along the plate there, but went together very easily. Nothing here that's going to cause any problems in terms of assembly. Like I say, I used a drop of plastic glue on all the bits, but that isn't necessary. Here's his character card. If you're at least 1 critical, the attack action has cleave. So that's good too, because his standard, again, low damage output, but the low damage output on both of these characters being offset by special abilities that make them a little bit more useful. And again, just going to stick around in a fight, which is interesting. The other thing that's interesting, I only noticed this earlier on, just before I started filming. This is a card from the Sepulchral Guard. Obviously this is a card from the Orruk expansion. They are different. Check out the corners. Yeah, the Orruk cards are different to the Sepulchral Guard cards. The base set cards are the same as the Sepulchral Guard. But yeah, that's not a major problem because I'm going to sleeve all mine. But anybody who doesn't sleeve will find that when they're putting cards in their deck, you'll get that situation. Some cards, you will be able to tell which cards are from the expansion and which cards aren't, because they will sit slightly differently in the deck. Like I say, if you're using sleeves, it's not a problem. As it would appear, I've spoken to people on Board Game Geek about this, and someone in America said that theirs were fine. Somebody else from the UK said that theirs were like mine, so it is probably a localization thing. Different print shops in different areas of the world using different dies to cut the cards. It's not an issue really, but something to be aware of. But anywho, so we go. Those are the guys. They go together very, very easily. And yeah, they're going to be good fun. You get in the deck, you get a bunch of Orky objectives, a bunch of Orky ploys, and a bunch of Orky upgrades. These are all sort of your typical Orkish sort of stuff. It's all about having a good scrap and that sort of thing. More chop in. Roll an extra attack dice for the first attack action in the next activation. It's all that sort of stuff. It's things about getting stuck in, really. Certainly a lot of the upgrades. Obviously, there's a card called Waagh. Oh, I said I wasn't going to do that again. Because why wouldn't there be a card called Waagh? Yes, there's a card called Edbutt with a nice picture to go with it. This is specifically for the leader, and it's an attack that, if it's successful, the target of the attack cannot be activated for the rest of the phase because they're basically sparked out. It's funny. Haka and Basha. These are restricted cards that can be used by 2 of the 4 different orcs, so give you a bit of versatility in terms of the restricted cards. Are dead. But good stuff. Dead hard. This fighter can only be driven back by a critical hit. Brutal Frenzy. Roll an extra attack dice when this fighter makes a charge. Lots of stuff in the orc cards involve charging. You basically want to be charging these guys in. You want to get some early... I'm not an expert, so I'm not going to really talk tactics here, but from what I can see, I haven't even played with this deck yet, but from what I can see, it looks like you want to get some early glory points, get some upgrades on your guys, and charge them into battle, and start Ed-butting people. This ability, Unkillable. During an attack action or ploy that takes this fighter out of action, roll a defense dice. If you roll a shield or critical, they suffer no damage and are not taken out of action. Very similar to Birthed in Blood, which gave you a chance to revive your last Khorne character. Also very similar to... There's a couple of other cards like it. I think there's one called Soul Cage or Soul Trap or something, which is a universal card that allows you to stop a fighter from being killed. And I believe there's also one specifically for the skeletons as well. So this is a thing that seems to be coming out quite a lot. These sort of 50-50 chances of not losing a character. It's quite interesting. I don't know how many of those you'd want to fill your deck with. The way my dice roll, I'm always dubious about cards that are going to have a 50-50 chance of success. It's kind of nice to have them as a last gasp trick, but it's not the kind of thing that I would tend to build strategies around normally. The only other thing I wanted to look at, as I was sorting through the cards, there's a few that caught my attention. Sorry, I've just wobbled the camera there because my sleeves rolled down. I was just moving my sleeves out of the way. Shut up, Kevin. A couple of cards that caught my attention. These are from the universal cards that you can mix into any deck. First of all, Flickering Image. This just awful wording on this card. After an attack action made by this fighter that scores a critical hit, you can push them up to 2 hexes. Oh, it's just a weird card. I know exactly what the card is doing. You take an attack action with that fighter. If you score a critical hit, the fighter that made the attack action, can move 2 spaces, can sort of become sort of ephemeral and flicker out of the way and move into a more opportune position for the next round. It's a little bit clunky, and that's something I think Games Workshop needs to be aware of with sort of that sort of wording. But there we go. That's just something I noticed. Shard Caller is an upgrade. Sorry, before I go any further, I'm spoiling a few cards here. I've already spoiled a few, I'm aware. But these were a few that I find interesting. If you don't want to see any more cards, if you're going to get this expansion anyway, you best switch off now, I guess. Bye. But very quickly, Shard Caller. At the beginning of each action phase, you can switch an objective held by this fighter with any other objective. Super cool if you're going for hold objective missions. Really good. I don't know how many times you'd use it, because obviously you attach it to a particular character, but interesting card nonetheless. There's a couple of cards here. There's a Cursed Artifact and Demonic Weapon. These are both things that give you a benefit in exchange for blood. The Cursed Artifact is just, you get one extra defense, but you get one less wound. Whereas the Demonic Weapon, each time this fighter makes this attack action, they first suffer 1 damage. So you automatically take the damage before you make the attack. But that's quite good for if you've got like orcs, because they've got 4 or 5 wounds. So they can afford to maybe give up a wound just to go at it with a Demonic Weapon. That's quite interesting. The Cursed Artifact is, I would say, it's the kind of card you want to give to a model that's likely to get killed with 1 shot anyway. Probably want to stick it on a Khorne guy or something, because if you're a Khorne warband, or even like some of the Skellies, and you go up against the Stormcast Eternal, a lot of those Stormcast Eternals, they can punch you out with 1 blow. So having 1 less wound isn't necessarily gonna affect you really, because if they land a hit on you, they're going to kill you anyway. So that benefit of +1 defense is quite nice in exchange for the loss of that wound. Shifting Shards. This is really interesting. Move an unheld objective 1 hex. You cannot move it into a hex that already contains an objective. It's always cool to be able to manipulate the board and manipulate the arena. I like things like that. And again, if you're going for those hold objective cards, yeah, it's going to help. This card, I would never run this card. This is one of those meta cards. This is a card for an expert. This is a card for somebody who knows this game inside out, back to front, upside down. Play this card after the final activation in an action phase. Name an objective card. If an opponent scores that objective in the end phase, score a glory point. Yeah, you need to know your opponent really well. You need to know what potential objectives they're going to have in hand. As the pool of cards gets bigger, I can see Anticipation just being a card that, as the pool of cards expands, maybe this just doesn't get run. At the moment, you might be able to do it if you really know the game well, but there's no way I could run that card. I wouldn't remember the names of the cards anyway, and the chance of me just being able to know what an opponent is gonna put down as a claimed objective. I mean, there might be 1 or 2 occasions where you can get it if they've specifically spent the turn moving onto objective 1. You can probably say, okay, they're going to claim the objective 1 objective, but yeah, on the whole, yeah, I don't know. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe it's just me, and maybe it's just me and my memory. But that's not a card that I would run, and I think as the pool of cards gets bigger, maybe it would be more difficult. This is bizarre. Choose an enemy fighter and roll an attack dice. On a hammer or a critical, they are no longer inspired and cannot be inspired this game. That is, if you can pull that off, that's a doozy. Because preventing somebody from being inspired in this game is just mean. It's just awful thing to do to someone. Really cool. Daylight Robbery. I think there's been a bit of discussion about Daylight Robbery. Roll an attack dice. If you roll a hammer or critical, take 1 of your opponent's unspent glory points. The existence of this card is going to create a situation where when people win glory points, they're going to spend them straight away, because if you leave unspent glory points sitting on the table, if someone's got this card, there's a chance, 50-50 chance, they're going to steal it from you. So that's going to encourage you to use those glory points, even if you don't have an optimal situation to use them in. It's just use them just to use them, because you don't want to lose a glory point to your opponent, because one, that's one less glory point that you can spend to upgrade a character, but two, you know, you're creating a situation where you've lost a glory point whilst your opponent has gained a glory point. That's a no-no. You know, it's a 2-point swing, so you don't want to do that. But I don't think you need to run this card in your deck. I think you just need to let your opponent know that you've got the Orruk expansion. Let them know you've got the Orruk expansion, and they're going to be so terrified of the fact that you've got Daylight Robbery in your hand. They're going to blow their glory points on whatever they can, when they can, suboptimally, and you're going to get the best out of the use of that card without even having it in your deck. Okay, I've been going on for 21 minutes. This is ridiculous. Shade Glass darts are only interesting to me because it's range 3. It's throwy darts, and that's, you know, range. Not a lot of range in this game. I think that's the furthest range you can get at the moment. And finally, just of interest for people who aren't aware of this, this is a relic, and it is part of a set. You get one of these relics in each of the expansions. It is an incentive to buy every single expansion. Obviously, all these universal cards are an incentive to buy the expansions anyway, but if you wanted to run a warband using this relic as part of your plan, you would need to buy every expansion, because you're getting one of these in each expansion. And that's it. Here we go. We're back to flickering image, and I'm going to cut it there. I'm sorry, this video has gone on for far too long, much longer than I intended it to, and I do apologise for that. I hope you found it interesting. As always, if you didn't find it interesting, I do apologise, and I will see you all again soon. Bye, everybody. Bye-bye. Oh, sorry, I had to do a little addendum. I just noticed the text on this card. While I bash his face, you bash his face. That made me laugh. No, sorry, yeah, I had to come back just for a quick addendum because I forgot to mention that these expansions do not come with pre-constructed decks. You do need to create your own decks. There's no sort of suggested, play-tested, pre-constructed deck like there was in the base sets. I suppose you get 10 ploys and 10 upgrades that are specific to the faction. So you could, I guess, play that straight out of the box as a power deck, and then you get 9 objectives that are specific to the faction. You could use those 9 and then just chuck in 3 more and give it a go at that. But really, the aim with these expansions is actually to do deck construction. I suppose they're working on the basis that if you like the game enough to buy the expansions, you've already known enough about the game to know how to construct a good deck. It would have been nice to have pre-constructed decks, but I guess maybe they're working on the basis that this 10 and 10 split for faction-specific ones counts. Maybe that's what they were thinking. I don't know. But yeah, something to bear in mind, but, you know, it's all fun. Bye-bye!